All right, good evening. We have guests tonight who are current dispatcher students who are wanting to check out the freight broker side before they consider. So good evening, good evening. I'm going to put over here a resource that we have on the dispatcher side, on the freight broker side. It's a load board called Trucking Planet, where you look for shippers. Okay, we let people in here. And LaDonna, you're the co-host, right? I made you the co-host, I think.
Yes, sir. Hey, how everybody's doing? I talked to Jessica Palmieri today.
Okay, the surety bond.
She told me to tell the class hi.
Great. Okay, guys, so freight broker 101 training for beginners. What is a freight broker? What is a person who's a logistics provider? Okay, so some of you are interested in this. Some people who are here tonight are current dispatching students who are perhaps curious about the freight broker side. Someone define for me what a freight broker is. What is the definition of a freight broker, or in your estimation, what do you think a freight broker is, or what do you think a freight broker does? Okay.
A freight broker is a facilitator between the shippers and the carrier. Basically, he's providing a logistic facility to the shippers, and also make sure he communicates between the carrier, like he is a bridge between carrier and the shippers.
Okay, and how do you think that's done? How do you think brokers do that, right?
In my opinion, I mean, the broker is, I don't know how to explain this, but I mean,
right, so there's no wrong answer. I just wanted to hear different perspectives before we get into it. But go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, the broker is a person who is just trying to facilitate between the shippers and the carrier. So the carrier is trying to find something like, like the carrier job is easy because they have access to a platform called load board, and they can go easily and find their needs. And then the shippers and the broker, this is somehow, it's like, I think in my opinion that there is some complicated, but because they don't have any platform that, initially especially for the new people who wants to start this job as a broker, like me, because they don't know how to exactly find their customers. They have everything, but they don't know how to find their customers.
Okay, good point. That's a good point. So a freight broker is someone who is what's called a logistics provider. They are someone who arranges, or you guys are the ones, you guys who are aspiring, who already are brokers, who have gotten their broker license. You arrange for the transportation and the movement of the freight. Okay, you are a logistics provider. You do that by procuring or getting the freight from customers with a broker shipper agreement, or a broker shipper packet that you send to the customer. Once you contact the customer by whatever means that you contact the customer by, whether it's cold call, whether it's visiting their shipping facility, whether it's an email campaign, social media like LinkedIn, which is probably one of the best professional social media campaigns that you could do when you go look for shippers, or search engines out there that's designed to search for shippers like ThomasNet, McRae's Blue Book, Hunter.io. We have those in our resources back here on this platform, right? So once you procure or get the freight from the shippers or the customers at whatever rate you get them, now you have to find carriers who will agree to move that freight at the rate that you have posted it for, or that you are negotiating to move it for, okay? So that's what a broker does. They're the middleman between the customer and the carrier, the truck driver, the owner operator, okay? So now the question becomes, well, how do I do the first step? And then how do I do the second step? And even before that, how do I become a broker? What is the requirements for me to be a broker, right? Some people in here are guests and may or may not know the requirements to be a broker. So let's go into our Freight Broker Course Access. Okay. And if you are a member of this training portal, you have access to this once you enrolled. So we look under Freight Broker Requirements. So this is our Freight Broker Access portal. Prerequisites, there are prerequisites to being a broker. You know, you have to have your business set up, maybe a business plan, business setup, things of that nature, your bank accounts, legal structure, and all that stuff. But we have all these other resources back, and we have 3 modules for the broker side. We still have information on the broker side, but let's go to the requirements first, right? What is required to be a freight broker, okay? And there's a flow chart here. So one of the first things that's required to be a freight broker after you've established your business structure, after you set that structure up, whether it's an S Corp, LLC, sole prop, partnership, however you do that, your business name, usually the name logistics or freight brokerage in the name, then you have to apply for an operating authority as a freight broker, a broker of property. There's 2 types of operating authorities as a broker. There are 4 types as a motor carrier. There are 2 types as a broker of property, except household goods, and then a broker of household goods. The one that you guys will focus on if you are going to be freight brokers, which deal with general freight commodities, would be the broker of property, except household goods, okay? The broker of household goods just deals with, you're brokering like moving furniture and things like that out of people's homes. Your household goods, the word household goods pretty much is a dead giveaway, right? So your carriers will be like moving companies, like the large moving companies like Covan, Atlas, Mayflower, these large moving companies that take these big wooden crates and fill them with the people's, like the military families' furniture, put them in those large trailers and then transport them across the country. That's a household good broker. That is not the one that you are applying for, okay? So when you apply for an operating authority as a freight broker, you are going to go to the fmcsa.dot.gov's website and you /registration, and you're going to fill out what's called the application for a motor property carrier and broker. So it's the same form that you fill out to be a motor carrier that you do for a freight broker. The only difference is on section 2 of the form, you are going to select the type of authority that you are applying for. So the first section 1 of the form is just general information. Let me enlarge this a little bit. So hopefully that's better by enlarging that. This is the actual form that you fill out, the OP1 form, which is the operating authority form on the FMCSA. FMCSA, for those who don't know, stands for Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. It is the governing body that, legitimizes motor carriers, freight brokers based on certain qualifications. So section 1 just gives general information. You're applying for the authority. Do you now have authority from or an application being processed by the, you would say no to question 1 because if this is your first time filling out the form to be either a motor carrier, and in your case is a freight broker, then obviously you're going to say no because this is your first time. You haven't done it before. Okay, so step number 2, your legal name, and then your doing business as name. That could be different. You could say ABC Logistics is your legal name, and then your DBA name could be ABC Freight Brokerage. So you can have a freight brokerage DBA under your logistics name, or they can be the same, right? So if your DBA is different from your business name, then you would put the different one. Okay, your principal place of business and then your mailing address, they may be the same, they may be different. If they are different, then obviously you would put the different ones. Okay, the representative, that's you, the person who is the owner or the creator of the entity, the company, your title, owner, and then your address and information, stuff like that. The form of your business, the type, the form of business is a corporation, sole prop, or partnership. And then if it's a corporation, what state? If it's a sole prop, who's the owner, so on and so forth. Step 2 is important when you are applying for a broker license because you have to decide which type of operating authority are you selecting. You can select multiple types. You can select one of the types of the motor carrier and one of the brokers and even the international ones. But so remember I said there's 4 types for the motor carrier and 2 types for the broker. The 4 types for the motor carrier is the common carrier property, contract, passenger, and household goods. Now they don't list passenger or household goods literally here, but those are the 4 types. You can have as a carrier, owner operator, truck driver, you can have a common carrier, contract carrier, passenger carrier, and household goods. But on here, if you are applying for the broker type of authority, the only 2 types are the ones right here: broker of property except household goods and broker of household goods. You are going to select, I'm gonna give you a tip, select broker of property of household goods. If you are only applying to be a freight broker, then you will select broker of property except household goods, okay? The OP1 form contains 8 sections, I think 4 of which will be filled out by someone who is applying to be a freight broker. If you're applying to be a carrier, specifically a household goods carrier, then there are more sections that you will have to fill out. Okay, so section 2 right here, you will select broker of property except household goods. Okay, any questions about section 2?
Yeah, I have a question.
No.
Okay. I thought somebody said they had a question.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, who is that?
This is Akil.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you already have a motor carrier authority, except household goods. So you're basically doing freight. Can you apply for the broker except household goods under the same LLC, or is it best to do another one?
It's more than likely, it's probably better to do another one, keep them separate, keep your carrier side separate from your broker side.
Okay.
That's probably the better way to go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Section 3. Now, section 3 says applicants that will operate commercial motor vehicles must complete this section. So you are filling out a application to be a freight broker. So you're not operating a commercial vehicle. So guess what? You can skip this section if you are applying to be a freight broker. This does not apply to the broker. This applies to the carriers, okay? So if you're filling this out in the role of a freight broker, because remember, the OP1 form is either the application for motor property carrier and broker, one or the other, or both. But if you are only filling it out as a motor carrier, as a freight broker, then you would skip section 3, okay? So now you just go to section 4. Remember, you're filling it out as a broker. So this one says for vehicle operating applicants only. So guess what you do to section 4 as an applicant in the role of a freight broker. Guess what you're going to do to section 4? You are going to skip it. It does not apply to you. So remember I said there's 8 sections, about 3 to 4 of which apply to the brokers, okay? Section 5, if you have any affiliations, if this is your first time in the transportation industry applying for a freight broker or even a motor carrier authority, chances are you're not going to be affiliated with anything that's FMCSA or transportation related. So you can put in the box like NA or non-applicable because there's nothing, you're not affiliated with anything, right? You can read this section to disclose any relationship you have or have had with any other FMCSA regulated entity, including entities licensed by the FHWA, OMS, and ICC. So within the past 3 years, well, this is your first time coming here. So you have no affiliations, non-applicable, NA, and then you just move on to section 6. Section 6 is household goods certification. If you are applying as a broker, go ahead.
Yes, sorry for interrupting, please. Yes, the section 5, you just said now about the affiliation, okay? Now, suppose, because like I told you on the other side, the dispatch class, that I have an MC number and a DOT number, all right? So if I want to, scale my business, going forward in the future, to try to make it this way, do I have to put any affiliation here, or there's a session that can accommodate both?
If you have affiliations, then yes, I would put it there. But if you're applying for this for the first time and you don't, if you have an MC number, so you have an FMCSA regulated entity, so you are licensed, you have an MC number, so you will list that.
Okay.
If this requirement applies to you, you provide the name of the company, MC or FF number, US DOT, and the company's latest DOT safety rating. So yes, if you are coming here having a carrier authority, then you have an FMCSA regulated entity, so you have an affiliation. So you would list that according to their requirements. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Letitia, you got your hand raised, I think.
Yes, I do. I don't know, it updated, so the reactions are looking different to me. My question was, I heard what you just said to the gentleman that has the MC number. Now, I do have an LLC, which I created initially as my dispatch. And then I did a DBA for logistics to kind of umbrella it. Are you saying I should still create another company, a new LLC completely for the brokerage side?
If you want your life to be easier, I would say yes. But if you have a so let's say you created your initial parent company and you called it logistics, and you put a DBA dispatching under that. Now you're saying you want to also put a DBA freight brokerage under that logistics. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you'll be perfectly within your legal right to do that, but it would be the broker and the dispatching would be under that same entity, that same EIN, which is
Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a good idea, but I would try to keep them separate.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Section
Mr.
6.
Mr. Charles.
MT.
Yeah, just to add to the young lady that just said, you will have hard time finding insurance and bond as well. So it's good that you separated this, my suggestion. They hate it when you combine them in one. So not even the same address, phone number, they cannot link your carrier authority versus your brokerage authority. So separate them completely as much as you
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So section 6, household goods certification. So this applies to the motor carrier, household good motor carriers, and either common carriers or contract carriers or household good brokers. If you are not a household good broker, because remember, you're filling this out as a broker in the role of or applying as a broker, then obviously you would skip the section 6, okay? Justin, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Charles. Sorry, how you everybody doing? Hey, Charles. I have a question. Let's say if you missed to get your BMC 84, and you already have the MC number, and you missed the date to get the BMC 84, um, when you're filling out the second time, would you add, like you said, would you say on the application that you already have a BMC number before?
No, because if you missed it, it is not applicable. If you miss a BMC 84, what a BMC 84 is, guys, after you do this application, the application to have a to apply to be a broker, there are other requirements after the application. So you have to get a bond next, okay? Next is the bond, and then the BOC3 and things like that. So you have a certain amount of time to get the bond company to file the bond type with the FMCSA. If you miss that deadline, you have to start that process over.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. And then we're going to go into that because that's next after the application. So Section 6, if you are applying for a broker of property only, not a carrier, not a broker of household goods or any type of the carriers, you will skip Section 6 because it does not apply to you. And then Section 7, of course, you just only applicants requesting authority to as a contract carrier complete this section, so you skip Section 7. And then finally, Section 8. Section 8 is just an applicant's oath, saying that everything I said in here is the truth. I'm not lying. If I am, I'm guilty of perjury and arrest me and all this other stuff, right? According to 18 U.S. code, whatever these codes are, right? So, and then you sign it, title it, and date it. And then you decide how you're going to pay it. So depending on how many boxes, because remember in Section 2, the type of authorities, you could have selected more than one. You could have selected one of the carrier types and one of the brokers types. So however many boxes you checked in 2, you put that number there. You check 2, you put 2, and then you multiply that because it's $300 per type that you select. So if you only check one box because you only applied to be a broker of property, 1 times 300, that's how much you pay, 300 to the FMCSA. It is a one-time non-refundable fee, or however many times that you check. If you check 2 boxes, then it's $600, one-time non-refundable fees of $600. So whatever the case is, based off of the number of boxes you checked in Section 2, okay? You multiply that number times 300, and that's what you owe the FMCSA, check, money order, however you pay that, mail it in, okay? That is the application that you fill out. Now, when you first go to the FMCSA website, you will have to set up what's called you have to go through what's called a URS system to create your email and password. That's called the Uniform Registration System, where they set you up with an email and password, because the FMCSA, the website, they do that because they may assume that you may have to step away from the computer at one time. So if you create a login, you log out and then come back, and you'll just continue on where you left off at, right? So that's why you create a URS email and password, and then you go in and do it that way. Now, if you guys want me to literally show you how to fill it out, like going to the site, creating your URS email and password and things like that, we can do that as well. But this is pretty much what you're going to see on there and how to apply for it. And then also too, on the site, you get to select the commodities that, as a broker, that you will be potentially dealing with. Most new brokers, they just select only general freight because they may just target general freight. Other brokers may select general freight, refrigerated goods, lumber. They want to broaden their ability to broker different commodities. So they select multiple cargo or commodity types that they want to broker. So, but most people who just get their brokerage license, they'll just select general freight, and they'll assume that covers everything. In some cases it does, others it does not, okay? So after the application, remember the application is the first step. You apply for your broker authority, or what's called a broker license, right? So that's what it is. When you finally get it, it is a license. So that's step 1. Applicant submits the OP1 form and or the OP1P, which is passenger, the OP1FF, which is a freight forwarder, okay? You're not applying to be a freight forwarder. You're not consolidating shippers' freight to send to one location, or you're not doing passenger authority, you know, as a motor carrier, hauling humans, cargo, like busing companies, limousine services, whatever, right? Step 2, you're going to receive a grant letter that has a non-active MC or FF number. In the case of brokers, it's going to be an MC number. You're going to get your MC number in the mail or email, but it's not active yet because you still haven't met the qualifications by the FMCSA to be an active broker, okay? You still have to do other things. So from the date that you file and pay the FMCSA, they will put that information into their FMCSA register. You are a new applicant. Remember the same place that we go to look for new carriers in Safer is the same place that they submit new applicants who have applied for an operating authority, either as a motor carrier or as a freight broker. Remember, we do every time we go into the Safer to the register, I always tell you guys, this is the area where people who have just filed for their operating authority, either as a motor carrier or as a freight broker, this is the same area that it gets journaled or registered or notated on the date that they filed. So once they complete the application, it gets filed that date. And then from that date, 10 days out, someone, step 3, someone can protest that. Someone can say, hey, I noticed someone had just applied for an authority. I don't think they qualify. I don't think they meet the qualifiers. I'm going to submit a protestation, they call it, to the FMCSA saying that I don't think this person should be a broker, or I don't think this person should be a motor carrier, or whatever the case may be. When that happens, it rarely happens, but it's there because sometimes it does, but it gets investigated. And if the protest is valid, then they'll come back around and say, okay, well, you know, there's a reason why you don't meet it and blah, 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 right? Or if there's no one protesting it, then it just proceeds, the process just proceeds through to the next step. At the same time, from the time that you file your OP1 form as a broker, or to become a broker, or an operating authority as a broker, you have about, I think it's 90 days, a 90-day period to cover. And within that 90 days, there is a 10-day protest within the 90 days. And also at the same time, you have to get your bond and your UCR and your designation of process server, or BOC3, steps 4 and 5. So step 4, the insurance company files the forms with the FMCSA. What does that mean? So after you file for your operating authority as a freight broker, you still have to get a bond company to file the type of bond that you are going to use for your brokerage. So there is a surety bond, and then there is a trust fund. And the bond companies, not the applicant, not you who filed, but the bond companies must file the forms with the FMCSA within that time frame. Just like the gentleman Justin just asked, they have to file it within that 90 days. You have to find a bond company that gives you a rate, a decent rate. The value of the bond, or the amount of the bond coverage, is nowadays is $75,000. It is either a surety bond or a trust fund in that amount, $75,000. What is the purpose of a broker being required to have a bond? It shows financial responsibility. It also shows in the sense that the brokers have 2 customers. They have their regular customers, the shippers, and they have their other customers, the carriers, who they are brokering the loads to. The shippers who they acquire the loads from, they have to have a certain ethical and financial responsibility to them because there is a broker-shipper agreement. So if the broker breaches that contract, then the shipper can file a claim against the bond of the broker to recoup the money. There is a broker-carrier agreement also between the broker and the carrier. If the broker breaches that contract, breaches that agreement, then the carrier can file a claim against the bond of the broker to recoup that money. What's an example of a broker breaching a contract with the carrier? Well, they don't pay you according to the terms of the agreement, the broker-carrier agreement. They don't pay on time or whatever, right? They do something that causes some kind of financial hardship to the carrier or the shipper for that matter. So the bond is there as a protection for the two customers of the broker. Okay, it's $75,000. It used to be $10,000 before the Obama administration raised it from 10,000 to 75,000 with legislation called MAP 21, MAP-21. That's an acronym. It stands for Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century. It raised the standard from 10,000 to 75. So that's the bond, the surety bond or the trust fund. Janine.
Yes, when would the brokers ask to be included on the carrier's insurance?
That comes way down the line after you get your broker license, after you find a carrier to move a load that you've already gotten from a shipper that you're required to move for that shipper. Then you will, when you're onboarding that carrier and getting them set up with your brokerage to move that freight, if you were that type of broker, you would want to be asked to be listed on the carrier's certificate. And
but if you have your own insurance, why would you need to do that?
Well, that's a great question. But as a broker, so you're kind of protecting yourself in the event of claims. You want them to go after the carrier's coverage before they come your way. So it's kind of smart from a broker's perspective, if you think about it.
Thanks.
Okay. So step 4 is the bond, the insurance. So the bond is a form of insurance. It's a premium. It's $75,000. Now there are additional insurance coverages like contingent cargo. These are optional, but they look good in the eyes. They look good for a broker in the eyes of the shipper if you have the extra coverage. They're not required, but they look good. Contingent cargo and errors and omissions. But the insurance companies, the bond companies who are insurance companies must file within that 90-day time frame the correct form for the surety bond and the correct form for the trust fund, one or the other, not both. You only have to have one type of bond. They both equal 75,000. You can either do a surety bond, which is based off of your personal credit, or a trust fund if you happen to have $75,000 cash laying around in escrow. Most new brokers, they do the surety bond, right? Because most new brokers don't have $75,000 just sitting around in escrow. They can just put in a trust fund and just lay it off to the side to cover any claims or anything like that. So, right? So that's the bond aspect, okay? And then the surety bond, the form that the bond companies file with the FMCSA for the surety bond is called the BMC-84, okay? The form that the bond companies file for the trust fund with the FMCSA on behalf of the broker is called the BMC-85, okay? Those are the forms, okay? So when they file those forms, they are telling the FMCSA, hey, FMCSA, this brokerage has met the requirements to have bond coverage in the amount of $75,000. And here's the form telling you this. So now you move on to the next step. And you still have to do this within that 90-day period. Okay, and most new brokers take, I'll say about 30 days, 30 to 45 days. They pretty much get it done. But the 90 days is a pretty good grace period, right? But that doesn't mean take your time, because some things may happen and then that time starts to dwindle. So you want to be careful, okay? Next is the Tavia.
Hi, I have a question as far as the bond. Do they have to pay like a yearly annual fee?
So it's like an insurance policy. So the bond amount, $75,000, is based off of credit and other factors for a bond. $75,000. And it's paid. It's an annual premium that pays once for the year, and I would say between $900 and about $2,200, $2,250 is an average amount that's paid, but I've seen people pay higher because they may have bad credit or other factors that determine that their bond amount is higher. But yeah, you pay it once a year. You pay that one premium for that year, and it covers you for $75,000 coverage for the year. Yes.
So, okay, so wait, let me piggyback off of that. So if they have to pay, if the credit was okay and they had to pay the $75,000, then that's what they will have to pay annually?
No, they don't pay the 75,000. Just like when you get an insurance policy, for say, if you were to get an insurance policy for $75,000, you're not paying $75,000 for an insurance policy. You're paying whatever that premium is for that $75,000 coverage.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So, and then the premium amount is based, there's certain criteria that base what the premium amount is. And one of the first criteria obviously is your credit, your personal credit, because at this point you don't have business credit established. So they have to go off your personal credit and other things. Okay. All right. So the next thing you would need, so the first requirement is filling out your authority to apply for it. The next one is your getting your bond. The next one is you have to have a designation of a process agent, which is called the BOC, the blanket of coverage or blanket of companies, BOC-3 form. The process companies, they are the ones who file the BOC-3 with the FMCSA, not the applicant. Now, unless you are going to be your own process server, you representing yourself, right? And you can do that in your own state. But if you're going to have a process server that you're going to have all over the country, which more than likely, because you're going to need a designated agent in every state that you are going to be doing contracts in, working with shippers and customers and carriers, right? So it's good to get a company that has representatives all over the country and then have them file the BOC-3 for you. That's probably the best way to go. And so what is a BOC-3? What does that mean? So if someone files a claim against your bond as a broker, the person that serves you that paperwork, you know, you've been served kind of thing, is the agent that represents that company. So you have to file that designation. Yes, Cynthia.
Hi. If I am going to be my own, if I'm going to be the ship or the carrier, the broker, and the shipper, I only need to file that BOC for the state that I'm in. If I'm only going to be doing this for myself, say for instance, I'm going to broker for my own loads.
Right. No, even if you are going to do it yourself, if you are going to have, but only if you have contracts and only in the state that you live in. So if you're only going to be doing shipping freight from the state that you live in, which is highly unlikely, I'm assuming that you're going to get shipments and shipper contracts from all over the country, right?
Okay.
So you would need a representative in the state that you have contracts with. Say you get a shipper in Texas, you get a shipper in Ohio, and you live in Florida. Well, you don't have a residency in Ohio, you don't have a residency in Texas, so you would need a representative of that BOC-3 company to file the BOC or to serve you the claim adjudication paperwork when someone files a claim against your bond. So it'll be a good idea to find one BOC-3 company, right?
Nationwide.
Who have representatives in multiple states. And there are plenty of them out there.
Okay.
We see them all the time when we look in the SAFER website. When we're looking at other people's information, we'll see their information. At the bottom, you'll see a name of a BOC-3 company. Matter of fact, let me show you. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Better, I can show you better than I can tell you, right? So let's go to one. Just put some random information in here. So when you are on here and you are looking, I hate these things. Okay, there. Okay, and you're looking at their information. When you're looking at the details of their information down here, it says BOC-3. Yes, they have one. And here's the name of it, Trucker and Broker Services. That's the name of a BOC-3 company that this carrier has on file that they work with. Now, if you click the link for their BOC company, it shows in every state alphabetically the representative for that company, that Trucker and Broker Services. They have representatives in all 50 states that can serve that BOC-3 claim paperwork to you, the broker, if the shipper or the carrier files a claim against your brokerage. Let's say you lived in Arizona, but you had a customer in Colorado and there was a claim filed against a load. The carrier got there and something happened on the load and it was the fault of the broker. So the claim was filed at the location of the receiver in Colorado. Well, the representative of Colorado will file the claim because that's where it happened at. Okay. They will serve the claim. They will send that claim. They will generate that claim, and then they will send it to you. They'll send it to the representative from Colorado to your home state, which let's say you were in Arizona.
Michigan.
So Lance will send it to Jerry, and then Jerry will serve you. So whatever state that you are based in, whatever the state that the fault happened in, the representative of the fault state will produce that BOC3, forward it to the state where you live or where your business is, and then they'll serve you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Adrian, I think.
Yes, I got a question right there. Okay, so we have our surety bond and we have our BOC3. But my question is, with the contingent cargo, if we get that insurance, is it reflected anywhere on this with the FMCSA or no?
It should be, but I'm not sure I have seen it on the FMCS. It'll say you have insurance on file. It should say, do you have a well, you don't have one yet. You don't have an active MCO DOT yet, right? Because you, or do
No,
you?
I'm not active. I don't have my authority, but I was filling out the paperwork today with truckers insurance. I think that's on our in the back office or one of the resources. And she was explaining to me, even when we get contingent cargo, it's not reflected with the FMCSA at all. Like, so I didn't know, like, how would they know if we have it? Is it something that we would just have to let them know that we do have this policy?
Well, with the only person that would need to know it is the shipper that you're going after to get the freight. So when you put together your packet, I would include a copy of the fact that you have contingent cargo on top of what your potential carrier is going to have, your assets once you get carriers. So you would let the carrier know, hey, I got contingent cargo and errors and omissions as a show of extra support when I'm moving your freight, Mr. Carrier. I got extra insurance to cover in addition to what my carriers are going to have for you. Here's in my broker shipper packet, here is a copy of my insurance to show you that I got, which I really didn't need to get, but I got it to show you how interested I am in moving your freight.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So that's the BOC3. And then step 6 here is, the applicant begins operation after receiving either a certificate. The certificate is in the case of a motor carrier. So when a carrier gets their MC, remember the MC authority letter on the dispatcher side, it says certificate on that. For a broker, it says license. And then the permits are for something else like freight forwarding and things like that. But the certificates applies to carriers, licenses applies to brokers. So anyone who has an active MC letter as a broker, just look on the MC number. It'll say license, okay, on it. Okay, so let's go back. Let me show you what I'm talking about there. I should have one in here. Oh, this is large. I made it too large, actually. All right, so brokers get licenses, motor carriers get certificates, okay? So any questions about the requirements of the brokers, being a broker? Okay, so now once you get your broker license and it's active, right? Now what do you do? What's next? Well, I got a broker license. I spent all this, well, not a lot of money starting out, but I spent the money, $300, and all the costs that were for the bond, the BOC3, the UCR. Oh yeah, that's another thing you have to file too. Another requirement is the UCR, Unified Carrier Registration. Now you, the applicant, can file your own UCR with the, just go to ucr.gov, enter your MCDOT in there that they granted you before it became active. And then, for brokers, it's 0, I think it's 0 to 2 assets, right?
What step did we do that in? What step did we do that in?
That step is, it's not listed on that flow chart, but it is a requirement for a broker. Everyone in the transportation industry, carriers and brokers have to file what's called a Unified Carrier Registration, okay? And it is a requirement. So the bond, It's still within that 90-day step. You can do the bond, the BOC3, the UCR within that 90-day framework after you have actually applied for your operating authority, filling out the OP1 form, and after you've gotten your grant letter to start off with your MCMDOT, your non-active MCMDOT number, the 10-day protest, which starts the 90-day process, bond, BOC3, UCR, okay? Seemed like a lot. Well, actually, it's not a lot. It seems like it. It seems like it's tedious. You have 90 days. Once you do that, so MT, are you still on here? I think MT is still on here. He's a broker. He's a brand new broker, and I think he has a shipper. I believe he's still on here. MT. Oh, he may not be. He may be gone. Okay.
No, he's gone, Charles.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, it's not a lot. Tavia, question.
The UCI, is there a fee for that as well?
Say again. It was kind of muffled.
I'm sorry, the UCI, is that a fee as well? Or is
Yes.
that just what you apply for?
Yeah. So the UCI is a small fee. The BOC3 is a small fee. I think it's like 50 to 70 something bucks for the BOC, or maybe even less. They're like both less than 50 to 100 bucks to file. The cost of it. And I got, great question. Let me go to the resource to show you, I believe in the resource. Yeah, OnePlus said about 75 bucks. So I got a chart that has freight broker costs, right? So and make sure I'm going to the tools and resources, I believe it's in. I should have a freight broker costs should be in here, but it's itemized by the authority, the operating authority, and then the bond cost, which is based off of your credit, the BOC3 costs, and all these other things. I thought it was back here. I know it's here. I just it slips my mind where exactly where it's located, but
That's fine. I just wanted to know if it was a fee. So later on, I guess I could find out exactly how much.
yeah. So when you're budgeting your startup costs for either the motor carrier side or the dispatching side or the broker side, yeah, you want to first thing you want to ask yourself, well, what are the requirements for this, and then what are the costs of those requirements, right? And then you can determine, is it within budget for your company? Okay. And the person, I think it was TransInsure, the person earlier who said they were speaking to the insurance person. It was was it TransInsure that you were talking to?
Yes, that's exactly who it was.
Amy?
And one of the other things I wanted to mention too, if you're if you new applying for your authority, when you apply for your BOC3 and your UCR, you actually have to wait 24 hours. So you can't do everything in the same day. You have to wait 24 hours and let the FMCSA update their system. And because if you do it then, the BOC3 agent, they won't see your MC number. It'll be invalid. So after 24 hours is when it's actually valid.
Very good. So here is now these numbers may be a little skewed these days, because this is about a year ago document that I put in here, but this is line item costs, freight brokerage. Okay. Kind of give you an idea of it. So the business costs when you form your business, right? Your MC authority, your broker's property, $300 one time. Remember on the on the OP1 form, you file that one-time non-refundable form. The bond, either the surety bond or the trust fund, the BMC 84 or the BMC 85, remember that? Between 900, now that may be skewed a little bit, 900 to 2250 annually. You pay that one-time coverage for the year, and it gives you a coverage of $75,000 for the bond. But your premium cost for that coverage amount would be between this and this based off of your credit, okay? The UCR, Unified Carrier Registration, between 60 and 80 bucks, and then the BOC3 process agent up to 100 bucks, about 75, could be a little less. That's a high number. I think it's gotten a little lower, okay? And then other things involved in your brokerage or you know, hardware costs if you get your computer. I put certain specifications based on my computer background knowledge of what you may need to support your systems and your back office infrastructure. Hardware costs, right? Computers, 500 gigabytes to a terabyte hard drive, 8 to 16 gigs of memory, 600. There's no way that's going to be between 6 and 1,000. It's probably going to be a little bit more these days. Dual monitors. I suggest if you got one monitor, that's fine, but dual monitors would be a good idea. And the type of monitor specs are the HDMI or VGI connectors, the types 22-inch, 300 to 500. Printers, obviously, or 3-in-1 or 4-in-1 capabilities. The 3-in-1 or 4-in-1 can either be print, scan, copy, or fax. Color if you can afford to, otherwise black and white, up to $400, right? You got ones from like HP, like Brother, you know, those different brands. Those are just some ideas starting out. If you guys want a copy of this, I mean, it's in the members portal under the freight broker requirements for the members. If you are not a member, I can send it to you, okay? Software requirements, you know, when you first start, you may not need a TMS system because you don't even have a customer yet. So you can cut your costs down for that subscription monthly to that cheap TMS system like SIN, Low Pilot, Access, Algex, eFreight Solutions. These are different names of TMS, transportation management software systems. The purpose of a transportation management system is to keep organized all your data that you're going to be dealing with. The data coming from the shippers, the load tenders, the creating the rate confirmations, things like that, all the billing paperwork, accounts payable, the information from the carriers, how many assets they have, who are their drivers, different things like that. And any assets you have as an asset-based, because you can be what's called an asset-based broker. You can have your own capacity, your own trucks, which makes you a little bit better in the eyes of the shipper. When you go to a shipper, you can leverage the fact that you have your own assets. You don't have a need to go search for carriers, Mr. Shipper, because I have my own. So if you give me your freight, there's no worry about capacity because I have 10 trucks or I have 20 trucks, right? Next, the load boards, particularly load boards with what's called a rate make tool. What that means is they're giving you the spot market analytics on particular lanes, right? Such as DAT or truck stop. And depending on the version of that software determines the monthly subscription between 50 and 500 a month. That's a lot right there, right? But you're going to get all the bells and whistles. Accounting software, you know, Intuit QuickBooks Pro, Xero, or Oracle NetSuite. Oracle NetSuite is actually excellent. I use QuickBooks personally, QuickBooks Online, but I'm thinking about upgrading. The only problem is when you switch from one software to the other one, there can be some things that's going on there as far as the capabilities there. Cynthia.
Yeah, I've done bookkeeping and accounting before, and a good software for people who are just started, because sometimes QuickBooks is expensive. It's a software called Bookkeeper, and you can get it at Office Max and Office Depot, and it works just like QuickBooks, and it also will transfer your information into TurboTax or QuickBooks when you get ready at the end of the year. And it's less expensive, but it's okay. It's really good for someone who's getting started.
Very good.
It's called Bookkeeper, and it's about $40. And you can set up multiple businesses in that software.
Very good. Very good. And then next on the communication side, you know, obviously at some point you want to have a website. If you're going to be a freight broker, I would imagine you have an online presence. You may not have had it starting out, but eventually you want to build to that point because you want to have traffic funneling to you at a quicker rate than you going to traffic, right? So you want to use the technology to your advantage. So you funnel traffic to you through your advertising, your digital marketing, things like that. A website is an excellent way to do that. Purchasing your domain, either through Wix, GoDaddy, or whoever you use, Bluehost, what have you. High-speed internet, of course, you know, the different types of speeds, you know, upload and download speeds, 100 upload, 100 up, 100 down, megabytes. Telephone systems, or what they call telephony systems, right? Voice over IP, like Ring Central, things of that nature. So these are just things to consider in your brokerage, right? To give you ideas of how you want to structure your infrastructure, your back office infrastructure, even prior to you going after the shipper, right? So if you go after the shipper without some of these things in place and you land the shipper, how are you going to keep that organized, right? You know, what systems would you have in place to keep it organized? You may have to do it on paper. I know a broker, when they first started out, didn't have some of these things in place, and they were keeping track of things in notebooks, on Excel spreadsheets, until they were able to afford, when they moved their first few loads with that shipper, to get the software and to make it more streamlined. So that is possible, but I don't recommend that. If you are at a place where you have a budget where you can afford to get your back office infrastructure in place prior to going after shippers and customers, then I would highly recommend that. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. You have to do what you have to do. You have no choice, which is fine. I just don't recommend it, you know, especially if you are at a place where you have the budget that you can afford this stuff, right? So make your life a little bit easier, right? And then some optional things, you know, shippers look at credit from the brokers. So we got a credit builder, like TransCredit or other credit builders. Someone mentioned contingent cargo a while back. So it says most shippers require this. That is somewhat of a true statement and somewhat of a not true statement, right? It makes your brokerage look better in the eyes of a shipper if you have an extra layer of insurance covering their freight that you are going to be responsible for shipping from their shipping facility to their customer, who is the receiving facility, because the shippers are paying you to move their freight to their customers, who are the receiving facilities. The receivers are paying the shippers for these commodities. And the shippers don't have the capacity to transport this. That's why they either go after brokers or go after trucking companies directly to move the freight for their customers, or from their shipping facility to their customers. And that's why they pay either the brokers, or sometimes shippers work directly with trucking companies and carriers, either way. But in your case, if you get a shipper who happens to work with brokers, then you can arrange for the transportation of that freight from the shipping facility to the receiving facility. You do not take possession of the freight as a broker. Your carrier does, who you have onboarded to your brokerage, an approved carrier, whether it's an asset carrier under your brokerage or one of your carriers in your carrier network that you've onboarded. They take the possession because they're the ones who signing the bill of lading at the shippers to take possession of that freight from the shipper, transport it to the receiver. When they drop it off to the receiver, that bill of lading is signed by the receiver. Now the receiver takes possession, indemnifying or removing from responsibility the carrier and the broker, because now they have received the freight. So they have removed the broker and the carrier from responsibility by signing that BOL, which turns into a POD now, a proof of delivery. Once they receive it, you know, once it's clean, no shorts, no damages, no overages, they accept it as it is, it's clean, and there you go. Michael.
Yes, please. Yes, please, Mr. Charles. Are you explaining the contingent cargo insurance? Is that what you're explaining? Is that where you are now?
Well, I just mentioned it a little bit as an extra layer of protection that the broker can use to leverage when they are going after the shippers. So most carriers that you're going to bring on board to your brokerage to sign up and get them approved as a carrier to move freight for your customers, they're going to have cargo insurance. In most cases, the minimum will be $100,000. Your contingent cargo, if you decide to have contingent cargo insurance for another 100,000 or whatever your amount is, that's just an extra layer on top of the carrier's 100,000. So let's say the value of the freight in the trailer that your shipper has is over 100,000, right? That means your carrier doesn't have enough coverage, right? So contingent cargo can kick in, or you can let the carrier know, like, look, you may need to up your cargo coverage from 100 to 250 if you want to move this $10,000 or $7,000 load for me, right?
Okay.
So, but contingent cargo is just an extra layer of cargo protection in addition to what the carriers have. The carrier's insurance coverage, the minimum, there's two general types on the policies for the carriers, cargo and liability, right? Cargo is 100,000 liability is 1 million. So when the carriers get their authority, they're filing for insurance coverages, right? So those of you who are former carriers or are still carriers, your insurance company filed the BMC, just like with the brokers, the BMC 84 and the BMC 85 for the bond for the broker insurance. The cargo and liability for the carriers is either the BMC 91 or 91X for liability. And then for the cargo, it's BMC 34. Okay, so Progressive or whoever the insurance company that you as a carrier filed, that's who they will file with the FMCSA. Hey, we're filing the BMC 91 to show you, FMCSA, that this person who applied to be an owner operator has enough coverage to have liability. And then, hey, we at Progressive just filed this BMC 34 with you, FMCSA, saying that this carrier who just applied for an operating authority has enough coverage to have the cargo coverage, 100,000. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Okay, Adrian.
Okay, my last question. With the TMS system in the accounting software, what are some of the things that you're using for your accounting software that you're not able to put into the TMS system?
Very good question. So there are some things that the accounting software are features of accounting software is just specific for the purposes of accounting, like accounts receivables, accounts payables, and all these different bookkeeping things. Certain TMS systems have limits on what they can do from an accounting perspective because they're more high level and broad because they want to cover all aspects of what the characteristics of a TMS system does. It does more than just accounting. So they don't go real granular or real specific on the accounting section of it as a accounting software does, because accounting, obviously accounting software, that's what they do, accounting. So they do every aspect of accounting. TMS system, they do accounting and other things too. Let me show you an example of a TMS system. Okay. And the features thereof, right? If I can look it up. So the one I have, it's old, I don't even use it anymore. I just use it as a teaching tool just to show you what one looks like. And let me put this in here. I don't know what's going on my screen, but when it comes up, it's called Ascend TMS. Okay. Let's go through Google and see if it gets there quicker. But it has other features than, it has broader features and it covers a scope of multiple things as opposed to an accounting software, which covers one thing very specifically. You see what I'm saying? So Ascend here. So with the Ascend here, when you log into the Ascend TMS system, that's just one TMS system. We have Load Pilot, Load Manager, Algex, eFreight Solutions. These are different TMS systems. I forget the name of the largest one. Man, what's it called? I think Mr. Irwin had it too. Jeez Christ, I forgot the name of it. But it's a pretty big one, pretty expensive too. But here's the Ascend TMS system. On the left-hand column are the features of the Ascend. So you can keep track of your loads, EDI and / tenders. What that is EDI stands for electronic data interchange. You have an electronic connection between you and the shipper, right? And shippers have TMS systems too, transportation management systems. And eventually as a broker, as you build a relationship with the shippers, you would want to have a login to their TMS system so you can see their loads that they're trying to get tendered, and you can just pretty much snatch them there and bid on them, or see if you can move those loads as a broker. That comes later on though, as you build a relationship with that shipper and you've gotten enough trust with them because you've proven yourself as a broker by your carriers moving their freight successfully on time, no claims, no damages, things like that, where the shipper will open up the access to you to their local TMS system. You can just go in there and look at their freight and what their pain points are, you know. But in the meantime, before that, EDI is an electronic data interchange between you and the shipper. It's an expensive process. Most cases, the shippers are going to send you their load tenders via email, and then you just manually import that data into the TMS system and save it, and then just change the numbers as a broker, whatever your margins are. Speaking of which, most brokers, well, the average is between, you try to make between 15 and 20% off of each tender that you get from a ship. So say, for example, a shipper gives you, you win a tender of $5,000. You got to move freight, load that value at $5,000. And you charge, let's say 20%. So what's 20% of $5,000? Anyone?
1,000. 1,000.
Okay, I'm going to say, we got quiet. I'm going to say Bueller. So 20% of $5,000 is $1,000. So if you as a broker are wanting to make 20% off of every tender that you get, or every, rate quote or load tender that you get from the shipper, then if the value of $5,000, do you expect to make 1,000 off of that? So you take 1,000 off the top, and then you post that load, or I shouldn't say you post it for 4,000, because the difference between 5,000 and 1,000 is 4,000. So you wouldn't post it at 4,000 as a broker. If it were me, I would post it at like 35, right? So give myself some wiggle room to negotiate, right? Because I don't want to post it at what I'm going to ultimately, if I have to, give it to them for. So that's what brokers do, right? You take your off the top, post it for a little bit less than what you have left over, right? $4,000, so I'm gonna say 3,300, 3,400, 3,500 on the load boards. So now you got that extra 500 cushion to play with between the 35 and the 4,000. You got your 1,000 over here. So when you invoice the shipper, after all is said and done, that load move, you're gonna still invoice them for what? $5,000, right? But you're playing over here on the carrier side with the little bit of extra cushion to see if you can squeeze a little bit more out of that, right? Or if you are a fair broker, give them as close to that 4,000, if not the whole 4,000 as possible. Because you already got 1,000, why are you trying to get extra money, right? So you post it for 35, a carrier, you can post it for 35 if 35 is a good spot market rate. So if the rate of the spot market is around 35 and you got 4,000 to play with, then post it at 35. You may get a carrier to call you and say, hey, I can't do it for 35. Can you do it for 37.50? Okay, I can do it for 37.50 because I got 4,000 in it, remember? I still got my 1,000 over here. I got 4,000 in it. So I still got the extra, what's that, 37.50, the extra 250 left. So I can take that extra 250 and put it on top of that 1,000. Now I got 1,250 profit, and I gave it to you for 37.50, right? You guys are following? So now when the carrier moves the load, turns in their POD, all the paperwork you turn in to get paid by the shipper, you know, you're still going to invoice the shipper for what? $5,000. You give the carrier $37.50 and you keep the change. Now, with factoring companies and everything playing into that, of course, that's going to happen a little quicker, but the concept is what I want you to understand. Okay. Tavia said, oh, that's how it works. Yeah. Welcome to freight brokering. But back to the TMS system, I didn't want to throw you off, but the tenders and the EDI, that's how you receive back and forth the paperwork so that you can build your load. You have your customers. Who are the customers in the TMS system? And from the perspective of the broker, the customers are the shippers. Assets. This could be your assets that you have under your brokerage. If you are an asset-based broker, you can list your assets, okay? Carriers. These are the carriers as a broker. So the difference between assets and carriers, assets are the carriers or the trucks that you own if you are an asset-based brokerage. The carriers are not the trucks that you own, but the ones that you have onboarded and approved to run freight for your brokerage. So they're part of your network of approved carriers. That's the difference. Carriers are approved carriers that came on board, that did the broker carrier agreement with you. assets are the ones that you have under your brokerage. You may be an asset-based brokerage as opposed to just a 3PL, right? Locations could be all the locations of your contracts, you know, things of that nature. Rates, this is a good Insta rate. You can put an Insta rate, date rate view. Okay, document management, reporting, accounting. So we were talking about the difference between the TMS and the accounting. The accounting part of this only goes so far as it relates to specifically your company. You know, accounts receivable, accounts payable reports, invoicing and billing, commissions management, driver pay management. So these are, and then QuickBooks, so you can link your accounting system in your TMS system to your QuickBooks portal, QuickBooks Online, and sync that data back and forth for tax purposes or whatever other purposes that you want. Okay, so hopefully that helped answer that software, that QuickBooks accounting software and TMS software. Yes, Cynthia.
It does.
Yeah, my question is, are there brokerage firms or companies that would take us on as, I don't know if you would call us trainees or whatever, where we can work for a brokerage firm as we begin to get our little, you know, stuff going and everything, almost like a trucking company would take on new truck drivers?
Right, that's a very good question. So the term that you're saying there, and you were kind of low, but I heard you. The term that you're saying is called broker agents. Okay, so brokers will take on broker agents to work under their broker authority. Here's the concept of that. So if I'm a freight broker and I want to scale my business, I can't personally be on the phone all day cold calling shippers, right? So I will bring a person on as a broker agent to come work under me to handle that aspect of it, at least starting out. If someone comes in as a broker agent, there are several dynamics or things that are involved in it. They can either come on as someone who's brand new, who has no experience, but they're coming in with call center and customer service experience, so they're good on the phones calling, but they don't have no experience as far as moving the freight from the time they get the shippers, tenders, moving it through the TMS system and booking the freight with the carrier. They don't have that type of experience, so I still have to train them. So brokers pay agents in commission, right? So whatever we make, whatever profit we make off the load that we moved with that carrier, the commission split between a broker and a broker agent who does not have any experience, does not have any customers coming over to the brokerage with them, is about 50-50, 60-40 at best, okay? So in that last,
Do you know of any?
Huh?
Do you know of any
I know of several. Yeah, I mean, there may be someone on here now. Who on here is a broker? Who on here is a broker who needs a broker agent to work under them, cold calling shippers to try to build their book of business for that brokerage? Look, Jeff just raised his hand. Jeff,
Yes, sir.
are you raising your hand for a question? Or are you raising your hand that you can entertain having an agent?
I could entertain having an agent for cold
Ding,
calling.
ding, 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 ding. That was, see how easy that was, Cynthia?
Yeah, see, all I had to do is open my mouth and ask a question, huh?
Closed mouth don't get fed. So
Don't get fed.
So here's the dynamics to that though. And Jeff may be able to. So when you come in as an agent, the broker is going to assess your skill set, you know, whether, number one, are you coming in with or without any what's called a book of business or any customers? Are you bringing customers from another brokerage that you work for, or are you coming in clean with no experience or nothing? That will determine how the broker is going to deal with you. If you are coming in with customers, a book of business, let's say 1 or 2 customers, you're just bringing them over from another brokerage or whatever, you got tired of working from them, they just didn't treat you right, you want to come over here, then the new broker will say, okay, you're coming in with customers, I'll let you, we can move their freight, I'll give you a 60-40, 70-30 split. The higher number in that scenario goes to the agent, The 70 goes to the agent, the 30 goes to the brokerage. The 60 goes to the agent, the 30 goes to the brokerage, okay? Because the agent is doing most of the work. And in some cases, the broker may even allow a certain level of control over that account. If you're coming in with your own book of business, your own shippers, that is your account. So the broker may allow you to control that account, even allow you a little bit of movement of that account through the process of booking it from the time that you get a carrier to the time that you create the rate confirmation and all that stuff. It depends on, that's on a broker by broker basis. Some brokers will do the first few loads just to show you how it's done. And then they may allow you to step in and do it. Do you have to be licensed to be a broker agent? No, you do not. There is a broker, there should be, and in most cases there is, like a subcontract between the broker and the agent to dictate the terms and the responsibilities and the rules and the commission split, you know, and what's all involved in that. So every broker has a different dynamic when it comes to that, okay? And the first way to base that dynamic off of is the level of experience of the agent coming to the brokerage. Whether you have you ever worked at a call? If it were me, I would ask certain questions like, do you have call center experience? Have you ever done cold calls? Have you ever done any customer service? Calling people dealing with claims or anything like that? Any type of on the phone calling? Are you personable? Can you talk on the phone? And I would even test you, right? Ask you certain questions just to see how you react, things like that. That will give me a baseline to determine where we're going to go for the duration of the conversation, right? If you say, hey, I used to work at AT&T's call center, or I used to work at Verizon, right? Or I used to work at the claims department as an insurance adjuster, whatever, right? So that's a good thing with me, because when you call customers, right, you have that, you know, that kind of level of experience. Now I have to take your raw customer service call center experience and transfuse it into the world of brokering when you're calling customers. Because I may have scripts, I may have things that you have to say specifically for my brokerage, and every broker may have that. You know, you just take that, take that plus your skill set and put it into one thing, and then now you're able to bring customers to my brokerage. Yes, Letitia.
Sorry about that. Okay, so one of the things is in my day job, I still work in import export. So I have access to like Rich Logistics and companies like that. Is there any way, but what I'm doing, I'm trying to figure out if what I'm doing will be a conflict of interest. Right now, I'm in the documentation side. So I'm trying to figure out how I might be able to reach out to them once I start my brokerage to have access to a company with that kind of amount of trucks.
You may have to go up under, you may have to go up under someone and then give the data to them. That way, when they reach out to them, they won't know it's you, so it won't be a conflict of interest.
Because I have actually met the guy that pretty much is the overseer of Rich Logistics, but I have met him through my job now.
So is Rich Logistics a trucking company or a shipper?
They are a trucking company.
Okay. So you're going after them on the trucking side. So if you were to come to a brokerage as either your own broker or as a broker agent, you can go after the truckers, the carrier now, and all of their assets, and let them know, like, look, what lanes do you run in? So when I go after shippers, I can go ahead and bring those lanes to you and then see if you are agree with those rates. You know?
Yes, and a lot of the carriers I have access to, they're the bigger companies. Like Rich is really owned by Roadrunner, but they're still just operating under Rich Logistics.
Right.
But like Penske, a whole bunch of those carriers, I'm very familiar with them. I'm just trying to figure out how I can use my knowledge and, you know, my relationships.
Yeah, you better get that information over here. Quit playing with all that. You hoarding all this information. You better get that stuff over here to us.
No, I got y'all. I'm trying to figure out for myself. That's why I'm like, I want to open that door, but I want to be cautious about it.
I get it.
Know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because I'm sitting down with my director. This is how I met this gentleman. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to count the back door. As soon as I figure it out, believe me, I'm going to share it with everybody because I have no problem with everybody having access to get their stuff, you know, to be able to tell a shipper, look, I have thousands of trucks to get my stuff out.
Right.
You
So,
know,
myself, Mr. Irwin, and definitely Mr. Nelson, we definitely can help you speed that process up. So
okay, I will be. Believe me, I will be touching bases with all of you.
yeah, we can have some ideas, discuss some strategies, if you will, to do that. So, okay,
Sounds good.
all right, yeah. So, Mr. Jeff, can you come back on because you were interested in agents? We were talking about agents. Let me log out of this TMS system.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, Mr. LaFleur, how are you,
What's
sir?
going on? I'm doing great. How you doing?
So-
I actually had some questions to ask you tonight. So after we finish this, maybe we could hit those questions because I've been getting a few shippers, but I'm getting in a few road bumps. So maybe we could talk about that as well.
Okay, so let me ask you the questions about the agents, then we can circle back to your questions about the shippers. So
Sure.
you're getting shippers. Are you not just locking them in with the contracts or the rates or whatever?
So right now it's more a lot of the shippers that I'm encountering, they want to do kind of like a bid situation where they're sending me the email blasts and then I have to bid on them. So where I'm getting stuck is basically trying to find a truck in time and B, get that right target rate for them. Because the other night I bid on a load and for me, I want to say it was like 1,000 and change, right? And the
Okay,
guy told me,
so let me stop you there. Let's go ahead and knock this out now. What was the lane? Do you remember the lane?
the lane was going from, let me look at my emails real quick.
And guys, listen very carefully what I'm going to ask them because this is as if you were talking to a shipper as a broker. So what was the lane?
The lane was actually going from, it was going to Florida to South Carolina.
Okay, not very far. So what was the weight of what was the weight? Is it, I'm assuming it's a truckload, it's not a partial or anything like that, it's a truckload.
It was
right?
a truckload. It was just at it was at 15 pallets. So it's
15
coming
pallets.
at, yep.
Okay,
and
what was the weight?
The weight was 15,000.
15,000 pounds. What was the commodity?
Supplements.
Okay, and were there multiple stop or was it a straight through? 1 and 1.
Straight through. Straight 1 and 1.
1 and 1. And was it FCS or FCFS or was it appointed? FCFS.
I think it was a first. I think, yeah, it was a first come, first serve.
Okay, FCFS, guys, stands for first come, first serve. You don't have to have an appointment. Your truck just show up and they put you in line. Whatever time they got there, that's wherever place you fall in. So you may show up, you may be third in line, you may be seventh in line, whatever. First come, first serve, right? Or an appointment time. That means that you would have to set up you would have to call the receiver and set up an appointment time for the delivery. Or the shipper may have already done that for you and told you what the appointment time is based off of them dealing because it's their customer. The receiving facility is the shipping facility's customer. That's who they're shipping their products to, their commodities to, the receiver. They're just brokering it through you. And you're getting the carrier to move that brokered load from the shipper to the receiver, okay? So 15,000 pounds. And what's the mileage on that? So you didn't give me a specific city.
It was 616 miles.
Okay, so the first thing you would do is, what would the spot market pay for that type of thing? Have you reached
So the
out to
spot
any carrier?
market, so this is what I did. So the first thing I did, I would use my rate mate from Truck Stop.
Okay.
And then I got one price.
And what was that? What was that price? What was that price?
The price that I got was trying to get it off the top of my head because I threw away my notes. It was about with my margin or without the margin?
Without your margins first. I just want to get
the
spot market. So the spot market is, guys, what the broker and or shipper will pay to the carrier, to the truck driver. That is the spot market. So what
Right.
what did the market say? What did the spot market say on average that the carrier would get paid for this lane?
1,000.
1,000. Okay.
Right.
What is your margins as a freight broker?
20%.
20%. So what's 20% of 1,000?
About 200.
Okay, so now you add the 200 to there, and you're going back to the shippers with 1,200.
Correct.
Okay, did that work?
No, but here's the thing. So this is the thing that kind of stumped me, right? So he knows I'm a brand new broker. So he said, let me be transparent with you. So the person who actually won the bid got the bid for 850.
Okay.
So, and I think he went straight to a carrier. So I was trying to figure out, how do I go against those kind of prices if I'm using the tools given to me by the load board, and two, how do I make my money if I'm being undercut by the carrier?
That particular instance is what we call a one-off. You can't compete with that. If the shipper went
Okay.
straight to the carrier and they got a lesser rate, the shipper's going to say, if I'm a shipper and I entertain a broker and they come with me to 1,200, and then the carrier calls me and say, hey, we got a trucking company, we got 20 assets. What lanes are you having trouble in? And they give you I give them, the trucking company, the same lane that I gave you the bid on, and the carrier, the trucking company comes back with 850. Guess who I'm gonna go with? I'm a shipper. I'm still trying to save my bottom line costs of shipping my products to my customers, right?
Right.
So that's a one-off. You can't compete with a lesser rate from a direct trucking company as you being a broker, because with brokers, you're taking the spot market and you're adding the cost of your service on top. You can't compete with that. Now, if it was another broker and said 850, I would question that, because how much are they? Are they only making like $20 off of that load? And they giving everything to the carrier, right?
For real.
So yeah, so the trucking company bidded on that load well below what the spot market paid. You said the spot market was $1,000. They bidded $150 less than the spot market, right? Which is
exactly. Yeah.
So did you have the specific city in Florida and the specific?
Yeah, it was the city was Fort Lauderdale, and the city in South Carolina was Columbia.
Okay, so it's going to the capital of South Carolina. So when you put that direct lane, specific lane in there, matter of fact, let me do it. Let's go to, I got a broker load board that I have a login to, it's corporate level. So to show you guys an example of that. So let's see what the spot market, let's see what the broker spot pays. Let's search for that load. And what was I forgot to ask you one question. What was the equipment type? I'm assuming that was a drive-in.
Drive-in, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't ask you that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So let's do a drive-in, standard van, and let's pick it up in, you said Fort Lauderdale?
Correct.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida is going to Columbia. Okay, South Carolina. And we'll just put today. We'll put Friday just to put in there. Just to get something. And so the weight was 15,000, right?
Yeah.
I'll just leave it blank right now, the weight. It may be a different number, and I'm gonna hit search. I'm gonna change the deadheads to 100 miles. Everybody in here should know what deadhead means. If you don't, I can explain it to you. DH-0 is the deadhead from the origin. DH-D is deadhead destination. F/P is either full load or a partial. You click the drop down button, you see that full, partial, or both. So we'll just say both. You can put weight values, length values in there, right? Okay. So I'm gonna hit search. So, and then go up on the spot market rate. So this one right here, that's a cheap run, right?
Yeah.
This South Bay, Florida, which is 63 miles from Fort Lauderdale, I'm just trying to get the loads as close as possible, right? As a matter of fact, let me do this. Let me edit this. And let's decrease the deadhead just to see how closer to the cities we can come and see what we come up with. That way it gives you a more closer or more realistic. There we go. So it gave me only that one load. So $800 was And it was $1.24 to $1.51 a mile. That's crazy. And $1.40 average.
Yeah,
going,
on truck stop, it was I want to say it was 180 if I remember correctly.
so yeah, coming out of Florida. That's probably what that's another
Coming
thing
out of
too.
Florida.
Coming out of
Right.
Florida is paying. So going into certain states, I'm glad I thought about that. This is Florida. Going into Florida is paying decent, but apparently, and this just proved the point, coming out of it is more of a challenge, right? So basically, they're just going to cover their fuel costs with that run. So, but the 800, it sounds about right, right?
Right.
But he said 850, so he just got an extra $50. So you said 1,200 when you. So the shipper, so from a shipper's perspective, the shipper did the right thing. He took the lesser rate.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So you couldn't compete there. But typically, as you do what you did as a broker when you talk to shippers, you ask for those specific details so that you can get your lane quote correct, as close to correct as possible, and then you go to the spot market, the broker to carrier spot rate, right? In other words, what the broker is paying. So 618 miles trip at $1 and some change, which is about 866, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so Jeff, Tavia asked the question. So Jeff kind of outbidded himself. I don't know, where'd you get that 1,000 from? What did you look to get your 1,000? You said you
I
looked at
used
truck
I
stop.
used the rate. Yeah, the truck stops rate mate.
Rate mate. So they gave $1,000 for that.
Yeah, it looks like their rates were a little high.
A little higher than that power. I'm looking at that power. So yeah. So you kind of outbidded yourself.
This is actually good because now if I see, maybe I will just use the lower numbers on the truck stop because it seems like they're going with higher numbers.
Okay, so when you looked at rate mate, did it give you a range between this and this, and you chose the higher range?
They gave me multiple ones. So they gave me 7 days, 30 days, 7 days, 15 days, 30 days, 1 year.
The averages.
Yeah, the
7 day
averages,
average.
right.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So I used the 7
which
days.
average you used the 7 day average?
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Mr. Nelson, you're unmuted. Did you wanted to say something? Okay. Mr. LaFleur.
Yes.
So now let's swing back to the broker agent concept. So you as a freight broker, how long has your brokerage been active?
It's been active since November.
November of 2021?
Yes, correct.
So 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me get Janine's question before I continue. Janine?
I was thinking if he was bidding against an asset-based broker.
He was not.
In theory, if he was, then
okay,
they will always have an advantage because they will be getting profit 2 ways.
Exactly.
So how could you overcome that?
By not bidding against the asset-based. You won't know that going in. You will never know who your competition is. The shipper is not going to share with you what other options they have. They just want to see how much you think you know. Right?
Right.
So they're not going to tell you, oh, by the way, I got a asset-based broker over here that you're bidding against. Let's see what you come up with. Well, if it were me, I'd be like, well, I can't win number one because I'm not asset-based. I don't have the trucks ready. I got to go get my carriers from the load boards or posting and stuff. So, hey, he can have it. So I'm not gonna waste my time because I know I'm in a no-win situation unless that asset-based broker don't know how to bid. They don't know the lanes and they'll give them too high of a rate. Then I might have a chance. But if they know what they're doing and they have assets, I can't win. as a non-asset based broker, I can't win. So
Charles, from my experience, that could be just a ship carrier trying to come from out of Florida that's in South Carolina or around that area, because a lot of them, they get good loads going into Florida, but coming out, they're extremely low. And so sometimes it's hard for even to get them to take the Florida, lane to go into Florida. That's just the experience I got with the
right, and you're probably correct, because he said that was a carrier that won that bid. That could be a carrier that just want to snap something up, get out of Florida, cover his fuel to get to a better paying area, and then he'll just take his losses, take his lumps coming out of Florida, and then once he gets to South Carolina, he can find something better heading to the Midwest or heading to the Southwest or whatever. Yeah. So Cynthia.
As a truck driver, I'm gonna tell y'all this: if you ever get into Florida and you're trying to come out, look for some of the larger grocery stores who they'll give you truckloads of pallets. Pallets come out of there by the tons because a bunch of them go in. And so if you guys have to kind of look for something, try to find a truckload of pallets that you can get the heck out of Florida.
Yeah. So Mr. LaFleur.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so broker agent. So you as a freight broker, because a lot of people are interested in starting off as agents, working under a brokerage, getting experience moving the load through a TMS system, understanding the workflow of that. So what are your requirements if you were to entertain? Well, you say you are entertaining bringing on agents. So what are some of the—
I'm entertaining. So some of the requirements that I'm looking for is basically having some prior experience in cold calling. I would just say, like, just from the experience of what I've heard and even myself, cold calling is kind of like a daunting, and it can be intimidating at times, especially when that person on the other line sounds really flat and they kind of like they're having a bad day probably. Mm-hmm. Just having that kind of experience in their back pocket to be able to open that person up so you could get past them, especially if they're a gatekeeper. I think that's one of the most important things I'm looking for in a freight agent.
Okay. Anything else?
At this time, no. Anybody I'm really trying to get anybody who wants to learn, who wants to become a freight broker themselves. And they'd be able to, they want to get that experience before they kind of venture out on their own. That's the kind of person that I'm looking for.
And is it because that they are teachable?
Yes, exactly. They'll have more of an interest to learn from what they're doing and even learn from their own mistakes, instead of just kind of pass it on as, oh, I made a mistake, next thing. But they can actually learn from that experience, that mistake, and the next time they won't hopefully commit the same mistake again.
Okay. I'm gonna ask some more questions. Let me get to Yolanda.
Sure.
Okay, you got me right as I'm pulling into a way station, guys. I'm a driver. I'm currently driving. Most of the time when we do these meetings, I'm in the driver's seat. But I just wanted to hit on, like, the whole Florida. Like, when it comes, like, for drivers tend to try and steer away from taking any type of Florida loads, like, period, because they know going in it pays well, but coming out, it is a BI trying to get out. You're going to get lowballed. I mean, for pennies on a dollar, pretty much, trying to get out. And what most people do is they try to, like, they'll what brokers would do or dispatchers would do, they'll tell you, okay, well, we got this good paying load going into Florida. And drivers won't, they'll be like, that type of thing, because they already know, like, you don't go to Florida because don't nothing really come out that's paying well. But what you do is you make sure that when you offer them that load, that you have another load that's close by. Say for like Georgia, most of the time, like the other lady said, like, you can get pallets, but from what I've experienced, they get loads that are just like in Florida or close to Florida, that'll be paying somewhat decent to get, to keep them moving in and get them out. So you want to kind of have something that's going to back them up and kind of guarantee them that, hey, if they get there, they're not going to get lowballed, because pretty much, you're just gonna be covering full fuel if you do. And and you're coming back because they're gonna short load you, or it's gonna cost more in order for you to drive further. And that's pretty much how that goes. So you want to make sure that you have another load stacked behind it that will guarantee them, like some decent money to back up, the loss of coming out if they can find anything.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Cynthia.
I agree, and God bless you. Who you drive for, yourself or someone else?
No, I drive for someone else.
Okay, yeah, I started driving for Swift, and that's how I used to get in and out of Florida. But I did learn, I met a lot of drivers there, and that's what they would do. They try not to go too deep into Florida unless they had a reefer was good, because then they was coming out with grapefruits or whatever. But they would try not to get too far into Florida, and then like you said, they would try to get something going to Georgia just to get them. And some of them had even said, you know what, I'll just what you call deadhead. And for people that don't know deadhead, I mean that's driving, you don't have nothing on your truck, you just driving to get out of there. There's nothing on your truck, you just getting out of there. But a couple of them have done that. They just said, let me just take this loss, get across the state line, or at least get to Jacksonville and get something from there going up, because it's not that easy. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. LaFleur.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you said your number one trait or quality characteristic you said specifically you would look for in a freight broker agent to work under you is cold calling experience. So do you limit it to cold calling? Because if a person's not good at cold calling, there are other aspects of going after the shippers. You can do, social, you can market yourself social media, digital marketing, email.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. The reason why I put cold calling in front of anything, it's usually that's the first thing people would associate being a freight agent with. Now, let's say if I was talking to somebody and they said, listen, I'm not really good with cold calling, but I can do this, that, and the third, I would definitely entertain them, but they would have to bring to me the alternatives to cold calling and convince me that they can make it work.
Okay.
And they can bring the clients in for sure.
Okay, let me ask you this. So what are I'm assuming you have some kind of matrix, or what is your commission split or your percentage that you would pay the agent if they would come into you? What I mean by is if someone comes in with experience as opposed to someone coming in without experience.
Sorry to cut you off, Charles. There's kind of a delay on my end.
Go ahead.
About that. So for a beginner just starting out, it would be a 50-50 split. Somebody coming in with a book of business, depending on how much clients they have, it could go from 60 to 70 being the freight agent and me being the 30%.
Correct. Okay, so when you do your broker agent contract, someone just asked the questions, are the freight agents covered by the broker's insurance? I would say no, there's not a need for that actually, because if you are you hiring them on the W-2 or are you hiring them as independent contractors, 1099?
I'm hiring them as 1099.
1099, okay. So let me answer this question before I ask you another one. Peter.
Sure.
Mr. Arthur, you had your hand raised?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I got a quick question. What do you really use as like contacting shippers or customers, cold calling, like email blasting? What do you use?
Well, as far as email blasts, you have like things like MailChimp, Constant Contact, things like that. Okay. Text Line and Text Magic for text blasts. You can go over LinkedIn as far as reaching out to social media. So let's go to our resources here, some of the resources back here that we use. And I need to transfer from the dispatching side, the email and text information over here. But some of the tools that we do, like resources to reach out to them, like we got different shipper search engines. Google's free, right? And it's probably the best one in the country, free. and it's free. But Webster's Online, Lennard's, or Leonard's as most people call them, they're search directories. McGray's Blue Book is a good one, ThomasNet. These are search directories for shippers and suppliers, Hunter.io, Careers in Food. These are different search engines. But Google, you can Google, like Mr. Arthur, you still unmuted, right? So
Yeah. Yes,
where
sir.
are
Yes,
you,
sir.
what major city and state are you near? What major city are you, metropolitan area are you near?
Where I'm at?
Yeah, where are you? What's the major metropolitan city that you're located? Like what
I'm
major?
in Muscatine, Iowa.
So what's the major city there? Like Cedar Rapids or?
It did a Davenport.
Okay, so shippers. I'm gonna put shippers near, and then whatever major city. You said Davenport, Iowa.
Yeah.
Man, you in the boonies, ain't you? What in the world? There ain't nothing out there. You
Yep.
got snow. You got snow out there, right?
Yeah, snow. Yeah, snowing now.
Yeah. So we got manufacturers near you, right? So I'm gonna hit more places. So we got some, so right here. So I-80, I-74, I-280, those are your interstates, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you Google those and look, these are all manufactured. You got a lot actually. Look at all these manufacturing companies that ship, the manufacturers ship the products that they manufacture, that they make to their customers, right? Who could be, you know, other manufacturers or who can be distributors or even directly to the retailers, you know, I'm sorry, not the retailers, but the wholesalers. So in the supply chain, you got, you know, raw materials, manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, and then the end user in the supply chain hierarchy, right? So these are manufacturers. So they make the products, they get their raw materials shipped to them to manufacture their end products to ship to their distributors or their wholesalers. You see, that's how the supply chain, so you can go after these manufacturers, shippers, right? By asking about their inbound, who you getting your inbound supplies from. That could be another customer for you as an outbound potential customer to outbound to them. And then who are you outbounding your finished products to? That could be and they could be your customer. So you can look at them from two ways. You can get a potential customer, an outbound customer from them, and you can outbound their freight that they produce. Okay. You follow what I'm saying? You follow what I'm saying, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that goes true with every shipper. You want to attack them. You want to attack them from two angles, not just outbound. You just don't go to a shipper and ask about their outbound freight. You ask about who their inbound suppliers are for them to make their products to ship to their outbound customers. Because I want to know where you're getting your supplies from to make your products, because I want to go after them as well, right?
Yep.
So after you, of course, after you win them and you're moving their freight for a while, yeah, by the way, I know I've been moving your outbound freight to your customer over here, but who are you getting your supplies from to make your products, right?
Okay.
And they'll tell you like, yeah, we're getting them from ABC or Widgets, you know, International or whatever, right? So, but these are some manufacturers in your area, right? Go to their websites, understand their products before you call. You don't, that way you don't sound green when you call them, right? And then you got plastic companies, manufacturing companies. These manufacturers, they manufacture, they make, right? So their end products are getting put on pallets, shrunk wrapped, banded up on pallets, loaded into trucks, and shipped to their customers. So now you have to ask them, okay, what lanes are you having the most trouble in getting your freight to your customers in a timely manner? Okay. Let me be the gap filler. Let me help you improve your service metrics by delivering your freight in your most troubled lanes on time. Okay. You know, so yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see, Peter, how is your shipper who pays up front? Oh yeah, you still got that shipper that pays you up front, Peter?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I still got that guy, but right now we doing everything good, systematically, and he's paying me not upfront anymore. And I just moved.
Do you factor as a broker?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how much freight is that shipper giving you? How many loads are you moving? So many loads per week? So many loads per day?
Not that much. He gave me like probably this year, like I have moved only 2 loads so far.
Okay, so far. Well, the
Yeah.
year just started. It's like January, so but
Yeah.
so sometimes that's what shippers do with new brokers. They will test you with a few loads just to see what your workflow, and that's another thing to keep in mind, guys, what your workflow is like. They'll give you like maybe 2 to 4 loads just to see how you move it and to see your performance and your carrier's performance that you have onboarded to move their freight from their facility to their customer. They want to see how you're working that. If your carrier delivers on time, there's no damaged freight, there's no claims filed, things of that nature. Before they open up the floodgates to you, they want to see how well you do with small amounts. There's no sense to give you large amounts because you're going to mess their money up. If they give you all the large amount, you may be overwhelmed by that. So they want to see how you behave with the small freight before they open it up for you, right? So that could just be what a common thing. So, okay. But all you have to do is just continue to perform, make sure you got capacity,
Okay.
make sure you got your trucks. Do you have, how many trucks do you have onboarded to your brokerage?
Now I have like about 15.
Okay, so you got 15 network carriers. And what equipment type are they? Drive-in?
Drive-ins, yes, sir.
All of them are drive-in?
Drive-in, yep.
Okay, so you're targeting, since you have 15 carriers now under your brokerage, you can leverage that now and say, when you go to shippers who have commodities that go on drive-ins, you can leverage that and say, hey, yeah, I got capacity to move your freight. We have 15 assets. Even though they're not your assets, but you say that to the shipper doesn't know that they're not your assets.
Yeah.
But you have them, they're your network carriers. They're in your network because they are approved now, right?
Okay.
So you got them under your brokerage. You're doing very well.
Thank you.
The last time we talked to you, you were struggling. Wait a minute. What in the world? So you're doing pretty good. So,
Thank you,
yeah,
sir.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very
Yeah.
good. So you got 15 assets. So
Yeah.
now I'm assuming
Mhm.
that you are targeting shippers who have commodities that go on the trucks, the equipment types of your carriers, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. It wouldn't make sense to get flatbed type of commodities and you got drive-in carrier. That wouldn't make no sense. Now you got to
Yeah.
go through the whole process of looking for a flatbed carrier, go through that whole onboarding process. Why waste all that time when you already onboarded 15 drive-ins? Why not target shippers who has commodities that go on drive-ins?
Yeah.
Right? It just makes
Yeah.
sense.
And the last load that I covered, the last load that I covered, it was a drive-in load, and it was an old carrier that I used before. So I just called him and I was like, hey, I have a load picking up from this to that. And he's like, okay, how much you gonna pay? I told him, hey, I'm paying this amount. And he's like, okay, I'll take it. And he took it.
Right. So now what is your process? So we got somebody in here who has gone through the whole load movement process. I'm surprised you guys are not picking his brain. So when you get a tender from your shipper, now does your shipper send you, as opposed to paying you up front, does he send you a load tender and all this stuff, and you got to build the load and the rate confirmation and all that stuff in your systems?
No, this my shipper don't.
Okay.
He just send me where the load picks up from and where it's going. And
So
I
that
quote
is-
him a lane.
Okay, so you quote that lane, and then, so when the carrier, so what do you give to the carrier as far as, like, do you do a rate confirmation to the carrier? What's the relationship between, so when you get that lane, that load from your shipper, what is your relationship with when it comes to giving it to the carrier? Are you making a rate confirmation?
Yes, sir.
Also, Peter, can you talk about how you built your network of carriers? I noticed you said you had 15. How did you go about building your network?
Great question. I was wondering when somebody's gonna ask this man with 15 carriers and moving loads about how he's done it, right? I was wondering.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you guys.
Okay, so go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so whenever I have a load for that picks up tomorrow, like tomorrow is the 19th. Sometime I post it for today on the 18th. And when I get a carrier, I'm like, hey, this load, I don't have it, but it's only available for the 19th. Can you do it? And when they said no, they only want it for today, 18. I'm like, oh, we can get set up. Can we get set up? And so next time we don't have to set up anymore. And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll send you the information and you fill it up and we get set up. That's how I get all my carriers.
Like, what's your setup? Like, what all is involved? Is your factoring like running their background, or how? Like, can you walk us through like what's your setup in terms of onboarding these carriers?
Okay, like my factoring.
Well, no, I'm just curious to know, like, what is your process? Are you using a factoring to look into?
Right. So if I was a carrier with you, Peter, I'm assuming you're going to send me your broker carrier agreement, and I'm going to send you my credentials, my MC, my W-9, my certificate of insurance.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And if I have a factory company, I'm going to do my factory company is going to do a credit check on you, the broker, to make sure that you're factorable. Right.
Yeah.
And if you are, then we'll do what's called a notice of assignment, so that you can pay my factory company as opposed to paying me.
Okay.
Okay. So your onboarding process is to send your broker carrier agreement to me, the carrier. I fill that out, send it back to you with my credentials, my onboarding documentation, a copy of my MC authority, a copy of my W-9, a copy of my certificate, so that you can vet me out as a carrier to make sure that my CSA scores and all that other stuff meets your requirements, correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right.
okay. So this is what I do. There are a couple of loads that I had, and I lost those loads. I could not move those loads.
Okay.
Why? The carrier gonna call me and be like, hey, our factoring company cannot work with you. So whenever I get that carrier up front, what I do is I always get their factoring company and call them and ask, how can I get set up with them?
Right. And there's ways around a factory. So if I was a carrier and I had a factory company and I sent you a credit application from the factory company, and the factory company determined that you were not factorable, there's still a possibility that I can still work with you if you have payment options, right? I would just not use factoring on that particular load with you, and I would select your payment options when I'm filling out the broker carrier agreement. I'll just select, let's say you had quick pay, or you had wire transfer, ACH, and your rates for the quick pay is better than what my factory company is charging me to factor the load. So obviously, as a carrier, I'm going to take your quick pay options because I'm saving money, number one, and I don't have to deal with my rates of my factory. So there's ways around it. Just because you have a factory company doesn't necessarily mean you have to take or agree with that particular load, with factoring that load. You don't have to factor the load unless your factory company's contract says that you have to factor all loads with them, which would be dumb on the part of the broker, to do that, right? Or the carrier, I should say, to do that with a factory, because some factory companies try to lock you in and say, yeah, if you're going to factor with us, you can only, it can only be loads that we approve. No, it can't be. I'm not signing that contract. That's crazy. You're not locking me in. Are you crazy? Mm-hmm. So most carriers, they don't read the fine print, right? But yeah, so those are your requirements. That's cool. Tavia, you got your hand up.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to understand what he's saying. Is he saying that, Peter, are you saying that you are posting loads that you don't no longer have, and then when the carrier calls you, you tell them that you don't have it anymore? And
he's tricking the carriers.
I was trying to say that in a nice way, like, so you like fake. No,
don't be nice. We brokers, right?
So you like fake it until you make it. Then so you faking the phone.
Right. So he's not. It's just a technique and a strategy. He'll post a load for the same day. They'll call him and he'll say, well, the load is not available. It's available tomorrow, but
right.
We can still get set up because the load was such a good rate anyway. That's why they called him, because they saw a load at a rate that was pretty decent, and they were interested in it. But it's already covered, or it's gone. It's not available. Another one's not available till tomorrow. But we can get set up for the future.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's good. All right. So
that's a strategy. Yeah, that's a quote unquote strategy.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
That's a strategy.
So did I answer her question?
Yes, sir. You did. You answered the question.
Okay.
So let me go back to Mr. LaFleur, but I want to make sure that Mr. LaFleur, I want to see. Is it okay? I think we put your information
Yeah,
in
I
the
put my
chat, Mr.
information.
Okay,
Yes, I
so
put my
someone,
information up.
okay, so someone wants to get a hold of you who's interested in entertaining being a freight broker agent to get some experience in the industry prior to becoming a broker. Another thing too, Mr. LaFleur, I need to ask this, and the brokers, potential brokers need to hear this too. As an agent working under your brokerage, if I was an agent coming under your brokerage and I brought, you know, as when I came under your brokerage as an agent, I brought on some customers, right? I brought 3 customers. And then I said, after a year, I said, hey, Jeff, Mr. LaFleur, I'm going to leave now and form my own brokerage. Can I take my customers with me, or
Of course.
I can take my book. I can take my book of business with me, right?
So the way that I want to do it is basically, let's say you came in with 3 customers. You'll definitely be able to take those 3 with you. And then let's say you had, while you were under my authority, let's say you gained 4 books of businesses. You would leave 2, you could choose, you would leave 2 and take 2. You could choose the 2 that you want to take, and you could leave me 2.
That's fair, because that, I look at that as being fair, because you're showing me that, okay, for me giving you an opportunity to work under my brokerage as an agent, at least leave me something for giving you an opportunity to come up under.
Exactly. That's the only way. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, you can take 50% of your book of business as a way of showing me appreciation. Leave me something. Don't leave me hanging dry, right? So I kind of get it. Yeah.
And if you had, like, let's say you had an odd number, let's say you had 3, you could take 2 and leave me 1.
I got it. Yeah. You take the higher. I get it. I understand. That's fair. I respect that. That's cool. All right, guys. So it's 8 o'clock. I'm gonna get off now. But did that help you guys? For those who are interested in reach out to Mr. LaFleur. If you're interested in being, you might have about 3 or 4 agents calling you, Mr. LaFleur.
No, that's fine. I actually have one more question for you, Charles. I'm hoping that maybe that can help other people as well.
Okay.
So I also had another issue today where I got a bid and I'm looking for trucks to get an appropriate amount to go back to the shipper for. However, I'm looking for trucks. There's not a lot of people in that area, and I was not able to book that load. My question to you is, do you think that it's fair for me to post the load instead, and then let the truck drivers call me, the carriers call me, and then that way I'll get the rates that way? The only reason why I was hesitant to do that is because I don't want the carriers to feel that I'm just posting stuff just to get their information and waste their time. But do you think that's the only strategy I have?
It seems in that scenario, it seems that it is, because your other option is not it's not yielding you results.
Right.
Right. So in that case, you would have to do that just to see what kind of return you get. So I don't know what rate you're going to post it at, but yeah, so give it a shot. I mean, nothing beats a failure but a try.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Peter, what load board are you using?
Peter.
Yeah, hello?
What load board? The question was asked, what load board are you using?
Okay, I'm using 123 Trucker Path and DAT. Yeah. Also Truck Stop.
So you got 4 load boards.
Yes, sir.
What version of DAT do you have? Power?
Yeah, I have the Power.
Okay. And I'm assuming you got 123 Premium Edition.
No.
You got the regular one?
Yeah, I have the regular one from SNTMS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Truck Stop what? Truck Stop Pro?
No.
Regular Truck Stop.
The regular, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So the only one that's, well, I don't want to say it's beneficial, but that Power is, and then you said Trucker's Path.
Yeah.
How much is DAT Power?
Huh?
How much is DAT Power? Is that the 135 plan, or is that the
200 and 220 something?
Yeah, 2 something.
Yeah.
So yeah, because you got DAT You got DAT Express, DAT Pro, DAT Truckers Edge, and DAT Power. Those are the flavors of DA of the.
Okay, Charles, I got a question here.
Yes.
Okay, so like I answered about the way I get carriers. There have been couple of loads that I try to move and I already booked those loads and the carrier always call me and like I called that DAT that hey, this load has been booked, but the carriers are still calling me and they be like, hey, it's a technical issue. You gotta wait. So a lot of time too, I use them whenever a carrier calls me, I use that to tell them, hey, I think there was a problem, but we can still get set up for another time.
Right.
So I use that as well.
Right. So with that issue, so when you move a load that's on the load board, Peter, that you posted on the load board, you already moved it. Do you take it down from the load board?
Yes. Yeah, I don't post it.
You don't
but
post
still,
it.
it stays there. Yeah, it stayed there.
So that is a technical difficulty on their side. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good idea though. Let me answer this. Mary has a question. Thank you, Peter.
Hey,
Mary?
I'm sorry. How's everybody doing? I'm sorry.
No problem.
I have a question, Peter. What systems are you using to reference your leads for shippers outside of basically Googling and what is it? LinkedIn.
Right. So that's for Peter. Peter, can you unmute yourself again?
Yeah. Okay.
So what resources outside of Google or LinkedIn do you go after the shippers with?
I use Google and Thomas Net. That's the only things I use.
Thomas Net.
Yeah.
Okay, so Thomas Net is in our portal under the resources.
Okay.
So yeah, under our broker resources, Thomas Net right here. Click the image. So yeah, you can look them up by suppliers, products, so manufacturer, you do a search for it. So.
Okay.
Select from over 500,000 industrial suppliers. So suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, end user, supply chain, right? So, okay.
Okay, that's bad. Thank you.
All right. All right, guys. Appreciate your time. For those of you who are in the dispatching class and came over tonight as guests, hopefully you got a different perspective on the broker side of things and how to go after what a broker is, what are the requirements for a broker, and then how to go after the shippers, how to go after the carriers, what do you have to have in your back office infrastructure, talking to live brokers who have already gotten everything that you're looking to get and customers and are moving freight. So that's kind of a bonus because you're getting real world concepts from them because they're actually out here doing it. They're moving freight. So that's pretty good, right? So yes, we do have a bunch of brokers. Like Mr. Nelson was quiet today. He's a broker. He's moving freight. So Donnie's not even in here. She's probably busy moving freight. So we got brokers who move freight and are more than willing to share their insights. So for those of you who are in the place where you're just beginning, what are some of the learning curve? What are some of the hiccups that you want to avoid that they've been through? So yeah. But yeah, so thank you for letting me sit in. Yeah, you're welcome. I had about 10 to 12 dispatch students come over who were maybe interested in transitioning from dispatching eventually to freight brokering. So they wanted to get an idea of what and this is just a taste. The last time we were here, we actually had a shipper on talking. I'm going to have another shipper who has a facility in Northeast Ohio, who's going to come on later on in the month. I think it's the 25th. And she is going to, you thought Jason was good. She's going to blow your mind. So, so we bring shippers here. So if you want to,
yeah, Jason was really good.
You want to talk to a shipper, you want to understand what to say to a shipper, and understand what the shipper, then you're going to talk to a real shipper who is shipping freight, millions of dollars of freight. So this year I'm not playing on the broker side. I'm trying to get the broker side up to the same level as the dispatcher side as far as attendance and members. So, but I'm actually reaching out to shippers. I'm not even reaching out as a broker. I could be a broker agent and bring Jeff about 3 or 4 shippers that I've already contacted. So, but I'm not talking under the auspices of an agent. I'm talking under the auspices of an instructor wanting a shipper to come on to give their perspective of what it is to be a shipper. And if they were to entertain a broker, this is what they would require to help you guys. So when you do go after shippers, you'll have a leg up, an advantage. So, but great job, Jeff. Great job, Peter. You guys.
Thank you, Charles.
What is this, Tuesday? So the next training will be Friday. So I'll see you guys same time, Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, same login credentials, everything. For those of you on the dispatching side who attended, I'd like to thank you guys for coming in. Hopefully you got enough information to kind of help you get a better perspective on dispatcher, difference between dispatcher and broker. And if you're entertaining being a broker, you know, hopefully you got some information to kind of motivate you with that, all right? All right, guys, I will talk to you Friday on the freight broker side. For the dispatcher students, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6. All right, have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.